Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Today, as the moderator, my name is Indah Azizah Tisa, will guide the discussion activities. Here, I'm not alone. There are my colleagues, Aulia Zahwa and Marini. The topic discussed was analyzing learners. The arrangement of the discussion activities start from opening, presentation of material, and uh, and closing. The first event is the opening. Let us say Basmalah, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Next is presentation of the material. I myself will read it. Okay, what does an instructional designer need to know about the learners for whom he or she is creating instruction? Understanding the target student and determining in advance what they can and will do is an important element of any learning disaster to gain an understanding of the target audience. One must conduct some kind of initial evaluation of that group. Student analysis is considered a very important component in the learning design process. How does determine the common attributes of a group of learners? The assessment of learner characteristics is an important aspect of the instructional design process. Assessing who your learners are and what their specific prior knowledge is help to assure that instruction is not designed to teach at a level not yet reached by learners or so basic that it doesn't engage advanced learners. It also reveals the preferred learning style of the target audience to incorporate the best instructional medium to meet that style. It is important that the instructional designer realizes that everyone does not learn the way the or she does so as not to learn the way he or she does so as not to impose his or her own preferred learning style on others. Okay, what is it? Taking adult learner characteristics into consideration when designing instruction assures the instructional goal of delivering training that is efficient, effective, and appealing is met. When instruction responds to the needs and interests of adult learners play an active and participatory role in the learning process, contributes which contributes of successfully meeting the goals of the learning objective. Okay, next, chapter overview. A corollary activity to analysis is learner analysis, determining the learner's approach to the instruction, including prerequisite knowledge, skills, and attitude toward the task is an important part of effective design and, and development. This chapter describes various methods of determining and articulating learners' predispositions, knowledge, and skills. Approaches taken by a variety of instructional design experts are presented and explained. This chapter also covers suggestion of formatting the data in order to make them useful during the design and development of the instruction and recommends method of evaluating and effectiveness of a learner analysis. Okay, the next material will be ready by Aulia Zahwa. Time and place are welcome.
Analyzing learners. There is not much point to creating an instructional intervention that the intended audience cannot or will not use. Understanding the target audience of learner and determining in advance what they can and will do is an essential element of any instructional plan. In order to gain understanding of the target audience, one must conduct some form of preliminary evaluation of that group. Learner analysis is considered a critically important component of the instructional design process. There was a time when the majority of educators perceived the learner as an empty vessel. The learner was without knowledge, and teaching was considered the act of filling up. Students with fact, procedure, and concept. This approach has long since fallen into disfavor. Most educators now perceive learners as individuals who come to each instructional situation with a variety of background experience that affect the new experience. To appropriately prepare instruction requires consideration of the learner's prior knowledge, abilities, points of view, and perceived needs. Brantford, Brown, and Shocking 2000 describe the importance of learner-centered environment when careful attention is given to the skill, knowledge, belief, and attitude that learner bring to an instructional situation. This fit well with the concept of the diagnostic teaching. Bell, O'Brien, and Hugh, which approach instructional problems through the development of a true understanding of the conceptual and cultural knowledge students bring with them to the educational environment. About everyone would agree the instructional design requires some understanding of the learner, but actually gaining that understanding through a trustworthy, reliable process can be a challenge. There is no single correct method of learner analysis that every instructional designer uses. However, the goal of every type of learner analysis is the same: to understand and interpret learner characteristics in a way that helps in the design of effective instruction. Wigger, Goles, and Killer explain goals of learner analysis as a rational approach to reducing the vast number of individual learner characteristics to a single set of general characteristics that make instructional planning feasible through the identification of common learner characteristics that have a direct impact of the instructional design and the range of learner experience and abilities that will affect the learner result. In other words, a learner analysis identifies the critically important general trait of a group as well as identifying the range of skill and talent within that group that are relevant to the instructional situation. While it is important to carefully consider the cultural and psychological aspect of the target audience, the number of variables involved in determining in advance precisely what will be culturally appropriate of psychology psychologically optimal instructional are beyond our current control. The most thorough linear analysis is still a matter of taking a best guess and how the instruction should be designed to work efficiently and effectively for the target audience. There are a number of theoretical constructs and recommended practice that can help an instructional designer conduct the best possible learner analysis. Appreciating the task by making use of this construct and practice can significantly improve the chance of determining what type of instruction will work for the target audience. Human needs. Before looking at the intended audience as a group of learners, it is a good idea to recognize them as a group of human beings. Basic human wants and needs must be addressed before any instructional intervention is attempted. While it is not the instructional designer role to provide for each of these needs, it is in everyone's best interest to be as less familiar with how to gauge an individual of groups instructional readiness at this most essential level. One of the most popular theoretical constructions to address the issues of human needs is Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Maslow's theory assumes that at any given time, a person's behavior is determined by his or her needs. The hierarchy of needs is typically depicted as a pyramid that has at its base the general physiological comfort, such as hunger and thirst, one that's bodily comfort and are met. One might address the more abstract need of knowledge, aesthetic and self-fulfillment. At its pinnacle, Maslow's hierarchy place the ability to help others find self-fulfillment. An example of addressing the needs of the learner according to Maslow's hierarchy would be answering that learners are not particularly hungry. When they participate in instruction in school, this may be addressed through a free lunch or breakfast program in a corporate setting. This may be addressed by providing snack or a meal as part of the instructional event. Once it has been established that the intended audience needs are met to a point where they are ready to receive instruction, the designer must determine what content the learners are prepared for and how best to deliver that content to keep all participants are active and interested. Learning style. Learning style have been a hot topic among educators. The basic premise is that all individuals can approach learning challenges in a different way, but this approach are not necessarily idiosyncratic. They can be categorized into common style. In his work on educational innovation research, Arthur Ellis, 2005, explained that most people who advocate focusing on learning style stress the idea that everyone receives and process information differently. Therefore, teachers should try to know how each of their student learns best. According to learning style advocates, a problem arises if only one or a few forms of presentation are used for instruction. For example, using only lecture, because this favors the student with a with an auditory learning style. Equally capable students who have differing learning style may not be getting as much out of instruction that address only one learning style. Popular instruments of learning style assessment include the Myers-Briggs Type Indicator, the Learning Style Inventory, the Sternberg-Wagner Self-Assessment Inventories, and the Embedded Figure Test. At present, there is little evidence that designing instruction to meet the specific learning style of individuals increases academic achievement. However, awareness that learners comprehend information differently should remind anyone responsible for designing instruction to provide a number of activities that stimulate learners' thinking in a variety of different ways.
Well, thank you, Aulia Zahwa. The next material will be read by Marini. Time and place are welcome.
Universal Design for Education, Universal Design for Education, or Universal Design for Learning is an outgrowth of the Universal Design movement in architecture. Federal legislation, including the Architectural Barriers Act of 1968 and the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990, support a universal design approach that makes all situations accessible to the widest possible variety of learners, taking into consideration that physical and intellectual ability, cultural, ethnic background, and socioeconomic status can affect how people perceive and process information. The Universal Design for Education movement seeks to create improvements and instructional contexts that provide equal access to the resources necessary for academic success. When school introduce universal design, student diversity become a powerful component of the educational environment. But implementing the universal design framework goes beyond accommodating individual learners because it makes educational environment seamlessly and inherently functional for almost all students. Universal design minimizes the need for individual accommodation. It is important to keep in mind that universal design for educational is not only about accommodating learners who are mentally or physically disabled, but is also about providing appropriate activities and challenge for the gifted and talented student. Universal design for education strive to provide appropriate instructional opportunities for all learners in a way that goes beyond attacking add-on activities after the instructional design is completed. Instructional designers must be aware of the needs of diverse learners and plan activities that welcome meaningful participation by all members of the target audience. Following the principle of universal design for education can help make the planning process easier and the final product more effective and effective for all participants. Popular approach of analyzing learners. A number of respected introductional design scholars have addressed the issues of learners analysis. The elements that are common to and unique among these approaches are worth examining as you begin to develop your own learner analysis methodology. Robert F. Major, as an author of introductionalism texts that have been popular for decades, his approach to learner analysis is a good place to start. Major recommends the following procedure is first, begin with realizing that a learner analysis is a working document that will not be published or seen by anyone other than yourself and perhaps other members of the introductional design team. It's not necessary to organize the content to the content into specific categories. Second, write down everything you think you know about the target audience. If it seems challenging to get started, begin with a trigger question, such as why are they taking this course? Or do they want to be in this course? Third is describe the range of characteristics whenever possible. A few critically important things to do when conducting a learner include take care of a describe the learner as they are, not as you would like them to be. Describe people is not institution or politicals. Describe the difference among the learners as well as the similarities. Remember that you are creating a working document that can be amended during the development process. Some Liano, Lofter, and Raster take a different approach. They suggest the learner's analysis should focus on three aspects of general target audience. It's a general characteristic. General characteristic is about demography information such as the learner age, physical ability, and socioeconomic status. The learner's cultural identification of shared values and the amount of previous experience with the content to be covered can all help the listener make informed decisions about how to prepare and deliver the introduction. Specific entry competence. Pure knowledge that is necessary for learners to success with the introduction is critically important to success of any introductional design project. For example, there is not much point to creating introduction on how to conduct research on the web if the target audience does not know how to use a mouse. Learning style. The psychological predilection of individual affect what they want to be affected and effective introduction. The other aspect of intelligence is a verbal or linguistic, logical or mathematical, visual or spatial, musical or rhythmic, bodily or kinesthetic, intrapersonal, naturalist, and existential. Concert sequelitas, concert random, abstract sequelital, and abstract random are example of explanation of how people prefer to approach the deal with problem solving and introduction. Knowledge of this preference may help the designer create introduction that is easily understood and expected by the target audience. Dick and Cray list the following as useful information for instructional design about the target population is entry skill, pure knowledge of topic area, attitude towards contents and potential delivery system, academic motivation, educational and ability levels, general learning preferences, attitude towards and training organization, group characteristic. And two items from this list attitude towards context and potential delivery system and attitude towards the training organization are important remains to take into consideration the impression and prejudice that the learners might have about the introductional content, the method of introduction, and the group following the introduction. This impression can have a tremendous impact on the effectiveness of the introduction. Furthermore, it is possible to improve the learner's respectiveness to the introduction by reorganizing and addressing the learner's pre-existing attitudes, either by capitalizing on positive impression or addressing early on the concern raised by negative impression. Morrison, Rose, and Kemp approach learner analysis in a manner similar to Samlindo et al. By examining the learner's general characteristics and three competences and learning style. Morrison et al. Recommend special attention be applied to the needs of cultural diverse learners as well as learners with disabilities. Designing with diverse learners in mind has become a popular topic in recent years. An approach that is gaining popularity is universal design for education, which plan for instructional by planning for the active participation of culturally and physically diverse learners. Smith and Rangan approach learner analysis by suggesting that the designer categories learner by the stable or changing similarities and their stable or changing difference. Stable similarities. Learner are generally configured similarity. Perhaps more important to an instructional designer is knowledge of the perspectual similarity among human beings. For example, human beings can only see what is in their field of vision, and the eyes come with the mechanism for blocking out visual similarity altogether. However, human hear is not something that needs to be directed, nor can human blocking hearings. As another example, healthy human vision system can read static text. Static text. This is called scanning, and they can following movement within their field of vision. This is called tracking. But they cannot do both at the same time. The way human vision works something anyone designing instructional multimedia should take into consideration. Stable differentiations. Many groups of learners can be defined into subgroups that are inherently different of the large group. There's difference many by physically, psychological, or psychosocial. Changing similarity. Creatine type of human development have been studied extensively, and the observation made by research indicate that process such as physically, intellectual, and language development are by the large the same of all people. For example, children develop physical dexterity more slowly than they do intellectual and language skill, in that a typical 6-year-old can describe the activity of creating a toy particulate and can discuss why the particulate slows and desert of the object which is the attack, but the child will probably not have the dexterity necessary to assemble and particulate. An instructional designer can use knowledge of human development to prepare lessons and activities that are most appropriate for the learners. Changing differences. Knowledge, values, skill, beliefs, and motivation change over time, and they combine unique for each individual. Things changing difference might be the most difficult thing for an instructional design to effectively prepare for. Nonetheless, it's important to recognize that the number of the changing difference come into play when conditioning of group learners. Creating the various profile of the typical learners. Another method of the complementing the data granted about the target audience is to create a fictitious profile of the typical member of a group. This requires a little creativity. The learner has to be created from the data provided plus some fictional elements, such as a name. To fully develop a profile of the typical learners, consider what the learners might say about him or herself. What other people might say about him or her, and what performance evidence is available about the target audience. Researchers in the social science sometimes prefer to comparing and repetitions and reports of different search about the same subject as triangulation. Triangulation is a very good way to develop a complete profile, both category, both charting and the creation of of fictitious profile have strength and weakness. On the one hand, the chart is the handy preference that provides information at a glance, but charts tend to be a bit clinical and can lead to a less humanistic approach of designing introduction. Also, charts tend to implement the information is perfectly relatable even though learner analysis is not exact science. On the other hand, profiles are the far less clinical, creating a target human being to design for. However, the information is less readily accessible than a chart, and the creative embellishment might prove more distracting than productive. The job of the instructional designer is to find the right balance between clinical data and creative interpretation that works for the context of the assessment.
Well, thank you, Marini. The series of discussions events have been completed. For that, I read the conclusions of our discussion today, namely, careful consideration of the target audience helps to ensure that the instructional design is effective and efficient for that audience. Learner analysis is a critically important component of any instructional design project. Although many educators once considered students to be empty vessels to fill with knowledge, the current perception is that students come to each instructional episode with their own skills, knowledge, and attitudes. There is no single correct method of learner analysis. Some learner data are easily quantifiable. Some data are difficult to quantify. Even the most thorough learner analysis is matter of taking a best guess about the target audience. It is not possible to know precisely how the learners will react to new instruction. However, a number of a number of theoretical constructs exist to help the instructional designer conduct an effective learner's analysis. At the most basic level, the instructional designer can determine in advance if the learner's human needs are being met. The designer can also determine whether the learners are choosing to participate in the instruction or if they are under some obligation to do so. Popular approaches to learner analysis include those outlined by decade. Most experts agree that it is important to consider the entire range of the target audience when conducting a learner analysis. The high achieving, the high achieving, and the challenged learners must be considered as well as the average learners to possible products for organizing learners. Analysis data are to create a chart of the data or to use the data to create a fictitious learner profile, determining the accuracy and effectiveness of the learners. Analysis is an important evaluation activity in its own right, comparing data and conclusions drawn with other educators who work with the same or similar populations is part of formative evaluation. Gathering data about student reactions to the instruction and interpreting those data is an important summative evaluation activity. Okay, that's it. This is the discussion of group 5. Let us say Alhamdulillah. As the moderator, I apologize for any mistakes during the delivery process. And thank you for attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Goodbye.